So I'm just going to do a brief recap of the section, and then we can jump into our discussion. So the first section is the North in general. The North is the realm of the Kings of Winter, a third the size of the entire Seven Kingdoms, largely consisting of forests, moors, hills, and mountains. Winterfell is the capital and seat of House Stark, while White Harbor is the only true city in the North. But during the autumn and winter, the winter town outside the walls of Winterfell becomes a city unto itself, when the small folk from the entire North fill it fit to bursting. The blood of the first men is strongest in the North, since the Andal invasion was never successful there. Although the Northmen speak the common tongue now, in the old days they spoke the old tongue, which is now only spoken by the wildlings beyond the wall. The Dustins of Barrow claim that they are descended from the legendary First King along with the Starks. Many of the northern great houses trace their lineage back to the first men and bear names that reflect the short, hard lives that they led: Starks, Wolves, Umbers, and Stouts. The custom of guest right is held sacred in the North, more so than anywhere else in the Seven Kingdoms. So, to begin, what do you guys think of the North?
It's gold.
It's big.
That's what she said.
Yeah, it's not as big as everyone claims it is, which goes along with that. But it's not quite the size of all the other six kingdoms combined, but still.
But what's the average size of all the other Seven Kingdoms? And then, never mind.
Oh, you would like to know that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm sure the North is proportional to, like...
two other large territories in Westeros.
Yeah. It also has some pretty cool animals living on it.
Now, how's that for a metaphor?
Yeah, I hope we start talking about...
We can just stick to the flora and fauna, and there's no flora, so let's just stick with the fauna, except for trees.
They got bears.
They do got bears, and they got a whole island of bears.
So they said that, like, chivalry, they just don't bother with it. Like, they fight, like, melees and stuff like that, but, like, they're more like, yeah, we got other shit to worry about, like winter.
Yeah, it feels like they need to work hard all year long just to keep just to have enough food for winter or for the summer snows, more or less. So yeah, I would imagine that they don't really have time for gallivanting around on horses with lances and stuff like that. And they do once at least, because they go to the tourney at Harrenhal, and that's essentially... So that was
part of this Southron conspiracy thing or something.
Well, they've had tourneys and stuff before, but I mean that does make sense. But in this world where summer can last 7-8 years, I think that's to less of an extent. If every year you knew you only had 3 months where you could grow crops, then that would be more true, I think. But they do have large basically summer, spring, where you'd have 12 years of no snow, even though there is occasional summer snows.
Yeah, but I've always imagined that it's just in the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, they don't get snow and stuff like that, so they don't feel it they just feel it like it's summer all the time. But in the North, they do get snow once in a while, maybe once a year or in a specific season. But just because the rest of the Seven Kingdoms don't really get it, they they just call it summer snows. I would imagine it's more like that you just have it would be like Italy and then Switzerland, comparison wise. That Switzerland of course gets snow more often than Italy does. Or am I wrong? I just mean that I didn't take it literally the whole there's 7 years of summer. I'm just thinking that the summer is so hot in like the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, the weather generally, that they don't feel like there's any winter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean there is snow in King's Landing, right?
Yeah.
Isn't Westeros most way farther north than most of the rest of the planet, or the stuff that we get to meet anyway? So it's like...
Yeah, I think Braavos is basically at the same level as the Vale or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Pentos is right across from King's Landing, right? So I think the Vale, Braavos would be proportional to the Vale. So yeah, it is mostly north. But.
Yeah, I always think of the whole north is north of everything in Essos.
Yeah.
Except for my buddies, the Ibanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the stuff about the chivalry thing is that it's mostly just nobility patting themselves on the back in the south anyway, so it's not that much actual heroism or anything like that. It's the nobility in the north are sort of more down to earth in general, so they don't really have to bother with that stuff. At least from the Starks, we sort of see that they kind of are maybe closer to their subjects, kind of like that they are more sort of commoners, at least. Maybe the Southrons would think of them as like uncouth and like mixing with the commons, maybe.
Well, they also don't have knights, full stop. So, I mean,
Well,
that
I mean,
kind of...
they have warriors that are like knights. They just don't do like take the sirs, or it's more like the Hound or something. Just like the whole North is the Hound.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a
Awesome
certain...
warrior, not sir.
Burned half their face off, abusive parents. Yeah, that sounds about right, actually. But I feel like there's a certain, like, culture that goes with, like, it's not, like, being a knight is not just a religious thing. Like, there's, like, the oaths that they take and everything, and the behavior that they're expected to hold to. I feel like when there isn't that official, and a lot of that's silly, obviously, that's...
Like Sir Gregor.
Right. And I mean, chivalry is not always like practical, right? So I feel like a lot of that, has to do with, just the fact that never developed in the North.
Well, I mean, this is something that Patrick was kind of touching on, a sense of geography and climate, like directly conditioning like a culture's values and like what is important to them.
Yeah,
and that this sort of brutality of the North has made a very austere and no bullshit sort of ideology. I don't know.
Yeah, they basically don't have any fun at all.
Did you not read about Melee where like 18 men died?
Well, that's the Umbers. We know the Umbers have fun.
Right.
Yeah,
they still hold it last night, or the first night. Last night? Oh, God.
The last night was nothing as much fun as the first night.
Because they kill the woman afterwards.
Lord Bolton's on the call.
Hang on. How does that make it mean it's the last night for the woman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah. I don't know. I just don't feel like they have like you have the finger dance on Iron Islands, and you have like tourneys and stuff on the in the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. But you only have like melees just to prove your worth. It's not like the same. Like in Scotland, you have the whole log throwing race stuff, and that seems fun, but you don't really get that much fluff about the North that
but I'm sure like they have snowball fights and built snowmen and ice sculptures and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I imagine. Like Great John Umber throwing snowballs at Roose Bolton.
Yeah.
Can someone please do
find out if there's a white around, right? Like you build a snowman, and then if it comes to life the next morning.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're probably not that big on snowmen.
John Umber singing the song from Frozen. Do you want to build a snowman?
We've got our intro music.
God damn it.
No, but I think it makes sense because, like, I mean, I think I remember hearing that, like, the French invented etiquette, like, or that etiquette developed because these nobles were so bored. Like, there was nothing to do, especially for women, and, like, so making a lot of really important, intricate rules about how you sat and how you ate and how you put your clothes on was kind of how they entertained themselves. So it makes sense that a society that's, like, chivalry is not exactly etiquette, but they're linked, I think, and that if they're constantly at risk from dying from others and avalanches and whatever,
starvation.
Yeah, exactly, that too. It's a good time.
Yeah, I don't think the North is like a subsistence society where they're just getting by. They've got castles, they've got farm. They're doing fine. It's just a different culture. It's the Andals never that stuff could have come over with the Andals. We know that like the knighthoods and the sirs and that all came over with the Andals with the faith, and the faith didn't take root in the North, so that's probably part of it also.
But I think they do specifically state that the Reach is the home of chivalry because they have such an abundance of food and a big surplus of food as well from each harvest that they, like Mikael said, that they're like completely bored out of their minds and they have to think of something to do. So they do all that like courting stuff and knighthood stuff like that.
I think two things was the Scottish like log throwing thing was because they weren't supposed to practice military tactics, so they made up like a bunch of games to like. I mean, at least according to Braveheart.
Yeah, so. The rock thing.
Yeah. And second, I think in like real life Middle Ages, I think chivalry was developed because after so many years of war that they just had these people fucking marauding. They're like, no, to be a proper like warrior, you have to do X, Y, and Z that are nice to people as well as kill your enemies.
To go way off topic, one of my favorite little like things from history is that the guy who wrote the sort of prototypical King Arthur story, the Le Morte d'Arthur, was like
Jeffrey something.
No, it was the Thomas Mallory. It was the,
oh my God, he was an asshole.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He was, he was more or less the brave companions.
He like raped nuns. He like literally, yeah.
That's nice.
No, he was the worst.
That was all like, chivalry is wonderful and King Arthur and Guinevere and all this stuff. So it's always been really interesting to me that was like who he was, but this is what he wrote about.
Ramsay Snow is going to settle down and be magnificent prose novelist.
Yeah.
He's gonna write the metaphysics of epics. And...
Yeah, he would definitely be a self-published author. Look what I wrote. Look what I wrote. You want to carry my book?
Dear agent, you have rejected my last 16 proposals.
I now send you my last one, bound in human skin. Which apparently was a thing too.
Well, there's actually there's that rare book. It's like a private library in Boston where they have the book bound in human skin. I always pronounce it wrong. It's like the Elysium or there's actually there's a book bound by this prisoner whose dying wish was that when he died his skin would be bound into a book. I'll get the details of that. I'll put that in the show notes.
I mean, I live in Boston. I should probably know.
Books.
I think
fuck that.
Is there a sign when you drive into Boston? We've got the book with human skin.
I heard it on a podcast.
Nah, it's like root for the Red Sox, motherfuckers. Oh, by the way, we got books with human skin.
Also snow.
Lots of snow. Holy shit. What's that?
You guys are like the North.
Seriously, it was almost like... Okay, so this season, within about 3 weeks, we got 90-something inches of snow, and it was fucking miserable.
Yeah, we only got half of that, and it was still the worst winter that I can remember, so I can imagine how bad you had it.
Oh, we broke a record. We're the worst winter on record.
Yeah, but we got 2 inches of snow 3 days ago, so it's still not over.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah.
It was a bitch-ass winter here. Didn't try to kill me once.
Wait till next year.
The Red Sox.
No, that's the Mets. Is wait till next year. Well, the Dodgers.
It's the Dodgers,
I know. Mets can take that. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the Barrow Kings, who and Barrington, which from the books we only see Barrington in pretty much in book 5 with Lady Dustin, and I always felt like it had a big history, and I'm glad that we got that sort of explained a little bit more here. But it seems do you think the Barrow Kings were on par with the Boltons and the Starks, or they were greater and they kind of got taken down a peg, or because they've been subject to the Starks for at least 8,000 years, or at least been at war with them for a chunk of that?
Well, they had that magical element to them, apparently. What was it? That no living man could rival the first king, so all the pretenders grew corpse-like.
Yeah, wasn't the Barrow Kings supposed to live super long as well? They were sort of deathless or something.
Vampires, perhaps.
That's probably just historical hindsight, not having actual names of kings and putting 9 people saying this guy lived 1,000 years.
There's
as
kind
happens.
of sort of precedent for people living a really long time in the world, though. The Undying in Koth, they do have something. They drink the shade of the evening and they live for a couple 100 years or something like that. Pretty sure.
Oh, I thought they were just tripping balls.
That too.
I always thought about. I always connected it to the Tolkien Barrow Downs.
Yeah, you can't help but not think about
the Barrow Downs Whites. So yeah.
Just those ancient kingdoms.
Yeah, ancient kingdoms, forlorn with maybe a connection to something fallen or something. Yeah, something like that.
Don't worry, Peter. They weren't elves. They were humans.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Don't get me started on how awesome the elves are, and I can't convince Peter, but that's for another podcast.
No, they suck.
All right.
Yeah, they do.
They do have pointy ears.
Matt, can you back me up on this?
I think Peter should join us on a Silmarillion.
Yeah, he can just sigh the whole time.
Be like, oh, God. The beginning of asshole drum.
But yeah, on the Barrow Kings, I sort of as you said, Greg, it seems like they were sort of rivals to the Boltons or the Starks beforehand, or they were the overlords, the first people in the north maybe, but I don't know, somehow I kind of think of them that they might have been the first people in the north, because I guess it's coming from history, how you research history in the real world, you mostly do it from archaeological digs from burial sites. So when they're connected to this sort of the barrow, I don't know, it sort of roots it in a really long time ago. somehow.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
No, I agree because I mean, like usually barrows are like the oldest kind of like burial sites. So like those are like, oh well, this predated this because it's like more of a barrow or like that. I think totally agree with what you're saying. And also, I'm looking at the map right now, and they're pretty close to the neck.
Yeah, I think that they would almost have more trade with the neck and the Riverlands. I mean, just more than maybe because the further north you go, the less there is reason to go north except to travel to the wall basically.
So I'm also looking at the map here, and only White Harbor is like at the mouth of a river. Does that make sense for everything else to be like really by like the base of a river, considering it'll probably like freeze over?
Well, I don't know, like because Deepwood Motte is like pretty close to the sea, and it's sort of depicted to be quite far from it, so it's probably not very accurate map. Like I would imagine that Torrens Square is probably also on the shore of the lake that it's sort of adjacent to.
Yeah, most major cities, I mean, if they're on a river, they're going to be at the mouth of the river just for trade purposes, right?
Yeah, but you look at, like, Barrowtown, it's still, like, up. Like, the White Harbor's, like, right at the mouth. Like, the Dreadfort's...
I don't know.
The Forks. The Carhold is, like, at the end of that little river.
Do you think that that a city has to be, like, in the mouth of a river? Because in reality, like, in our world, several of the biggest cities largest cities are, like, inland. Like, London and Paris are both inland. They're not on the mouth of a river, but they are on a river.
Yeah, the good thing about being up a river like that, I think, is it's a little harder to attack from the sea.
They can keep like free of like frozen. I mean, that's true.
I don't know.
It just like makes no sense that if you're trying to like have trade up and down a river, like wouldn't you want to be on the mouth of the river instead of like okay, maybe upriver like in the reach is fine, but like the north where the ship will freeze over.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't think about trade necessarily when you place a city. You just think about fresh water, and just being near a river is good enough when you found a new settlement. So I would say that, well, especially in the north where you can be frozen and like secluded in winter for a long while. I think it would just be where is the highest possibility of survival during winter near a river.
Well, I think frozen rivers aren't the worst thing either. Like you can use those as for trade. They did that in Russia a lot, I do believe.
What? Sorry.
They use frozen rivers for trade in the winter because once they freeze over, you can just you can move on them pretty easily.
Yeah, they basically highways.
Yeah, sleds instead of boats or something.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Glad we settled that. And also we know White Harbor was the last of the cities, so that would make sense that it's one of the only ones that's not up up the river.
Yeah, but still they had the Wolf's Den there.
Right, but that was more for defense, right? To protect the road to Winterfell. Or the river to Winterfell. I mean, they also go out of their way to to note that guest right is super sacred in the north. As readers, with hindsight, we know that with the Red Wedding that's going to come back to haunt them if it's not already haunting the phrase. And then also the rat cook, because the rat cook seems to be like the legend that they used to scare everybody, and that's, he was turned into a rat not so much for killing the king's son, but for breaking guest right.
Yeah, that comes down to the harsh conditions again, like because it could mean life or death to give somebody like shelter and food in the winter. So that's probably the reason why they hold it so dear.
One thing I wanted to throw out just in general about the North was, it seems to me like they're like the region that's second to Dorne that has like the strongest identity, like almost like our modern idea of nationalism or something. Like the Northmen sort of think of themselves all as Northmen, even though the Boltons don't necessarily like anybody, etc. And just like the Dornish, the small folk seem closer to the nobles. Like, what do you guys all think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's probably the geographical isolation mostly.
Oh, maybe one exception: the Iron Islanders.
Yeah, they do have.
They have a pretty strong identity as well.
Well, I think it's like population clusters more, or like because everyone seems to live around the castle or the capital. Like the Islanders, like you're stuck on an island, everyone.
Yeah, and you still feel like you have to pay the iron price.
No,
not all of them.
Well, that's because they're dicks.
Here.
Well, that's an identity as well.
Well,
good point.
I don't mean to say that about the North too, but like we're introduced to the North through Eddard and the Starks, who we all like, or most people like, and Eddard, he's a good dad and he cares about the small folk, but that does seem to be the exception rather than the rule. Not just everywhere, but in the North also. Like they do live a brutal existence, and there's probably a reason that the other six kingdoms call them the brutal Northmen, or the because they are different, and it's is part of the the climate.
Oh, come on now! Like the Umbers aren't bad guys. They
No, I'd love to
don't
drink
like
with them, but
numbers,
like
or they
I
don't
don't know
like
if
reading.
Yeah, but they do seem like they just have a different code, and they are a different temperament, if not actually psychologically different than the other people in Westeros.
I agree, and I also think that it's like the things that we've heard of the Northerners of old is very like hugely different from what we know of them nowadays, and we also haven't really like seen them in the winter. Like Ned had all of his servants around for dinner all the time, but like we don't know what the last winter was like. Like there's still a big difference between being in the castle and being in the winter town. So I feel like a lot of Northerners are like, maybe when pressed, especially, and when like their northern hood is being attacked, like sure they're like, yeah, I love being a Northerner, blah blah blah. But like just your random Tuesday in the North, it's like whatever, man. Like just trying to survive.
Tacos.
Yeah, sure. When they come around with tacos, they like the nobles, but
But they don't really like move out either. But I guess they can't. Like there's no like in the show Ross moves to King's Landing, but like there's no like not a lot of Northerners in King's Landing. Like there are people from the other kingdoms, like from Dawn and the Reach and the Vale. Like the Northerners usually just stay in the north, so they have to like it there. Come on.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to. I'm not trying to say I wouldn't like it there or they don't like it there. It's not that that's not what I meant. But I think we get like a little bit of a rose, through rose-tinted glasses when we think of the North, and because they're the protagonists of Game of Thrones. That's why.
Definitely, I think you're right that I think there's a higher concentration of dicks in the North than that you would think. But yeah, I also wonder now that Peter pointed it out, that why aren't there a lot of people that just think, screw this coal, I'm moving south.
Probably because their lords won't let them. Most you couldn't, even in the Middle Ages. Middle Ages, you couldn't just. Usually, you were a bonded tenant, or you can't just get up and go, especially with the church. But they also don't have like the seven bearing down on them.
Also, you're not from America, so you probably have a comprehensive immigration policy. Here we don't.
What do you mean?
So for people that emigrate, like the lords of the North are probably like, don't do that. We like need every hand to till the field until winter, and then like go down south, do it. We don't need your mouth to feed. But we haven't seen that yet in the books. No. And I think it's also like the same thing about the pride thing. It's like, no, we're Northmen. Instead of going down south, we'll go out to hunt, and you'll find my bones in spring. Like,
yeah, sure. I think that's a possibility. Definitely. I think it's just interesting to note that you haven't heard about that. Really, people moving south instead of just going out in the woods.
I mean, there's also economic realities like in immigration where you're either moving south because you can make more money or have a better life. If you're going to move south and not improve yourself besides the temperature and maybe like, be under a lord that's worse than your current lord, then there's not that economic, push to put you down there.
Yeah.
Well, all the stories about like winters and how people go out in the woods and try to die, and lords dying in the castles, the most of the stories come when old Nan tells them, and that's from the north. So one would think that even though it's like 7 years of winter, and even also in the southern kingdom, the southern part of the kingdom, it wouldn't be as harsh as in the north, so they might just want to move down just to not die.
Yeah, but
maybe they tried, and the twins are just like, nope, you gotta pay us.
Hell no, fucking phrase. It all boils down to the phrase.
Yep. Yeah, let's kill them.
But to be fair, those stories from Old Nan, those were mostly about the Long Night, which was the worst winter ever, plus others, plus ice spiders, right?
Maybe, right. Yeah.
I just don't really see there being a lot of mobility in general, like among peasants. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I guess White Harbor might have some trade. Like, I bet that they have a lot of southerners there, but like Davos has been there, and smugglers and sailors and shit like that. But like, it's probably not in the other direction. That like people from Barrowton and Deepwood Mud probably don't go to White Harbor and like go to Old Town to become like maesters and whores and whatever.
Well, those are your only two options, right? Just to be maester or whore.
Or both.
Yeah, but
a
also,
maester whore.
It is geography, because, like you said, it makes sense looking at the map. White Harbor probably has a lot of trade with the Sisters in the Vale. The Vale is, 12 port cities on the eastern side. But in the west, there's the Sunset Sea and there's the Iron Islanders, who you're not trading with. They're raping and pillaging you. And you got the Wildlings. And, there's probably some trade between Bear Island and Deepwood Mott, but it's just the options are few, so there's just less going on probably. That has to be insular.
The other thing I just kind of thought about with that too is, if you're in the north and you're the lucky one who stays through the winter, or you live through the winter, I mean, you're kind of like getting ahead economically.
No, that's true. It's like surviving the Black Plague. It's like, hey, guess what? You have to pay me more because you don't have 12 other guys that can do what I do.
Yeah, and there is a couple examples in the book of Northerners going overseas too. Like there was 2 different sellsword companies that were made up of Northerners that I think were supposed to have gone after the King of the North submitted to Aegon. Mm-hmm. It was like the Company of the Rose was one. I forget the other.
Was it the Wandering Wolf or the Hungry Wolf that founded their own sellsword company as well, I think? One of the
Wandering one.
Yeah, Hungry Wolf was King Theon, who did all the cool stuff.
Oh, sorry, Wandering.
I'm starting to think that starting a sellsword company is like the Westeros version of like Teenage Rebellion or something at this point.
It's they're starting a band.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what it is.
Go have your fun, but you'll be back. Probably
like the joke is not
with
like
a clap.
The joke is not great band name. It's, oh man, that would be such a cool name for my sellsword company.
What is the Westerosi hot topic then?
I'm sure there's a stall at White Harbor that sells like, I don't know, black clothing.
If it's in the north, it's a whole topic. So.
Oh, right.
Lukewarm topic. Yeah. So let's move on to the Kings of Winter. Do you guys want to like rotate? Someone else can read each recap, so it's different.
Nope.
Would anyone like to read the recap for the Kings of Winter?
The Kings of Winter, in parentheses, summary. The Starks claim to have ruled the North from Winterfell for 8,000 years. The ancient Kings of Winter killed or drove all the giants out of the North and battled wargs and skin changers as well. The Starks had put down the revolts and uprisings, particularly against the Barrow Kings to the south. Most petty kings were reduced to vassals of the Starks of Winterfell. The Starks fought a great battle against the Warg King and his allies, the Children of the Forest, and eventually were victorious. The bitterest foes of Winterfell were the Boltons of the Dreadfort. Many wars were fought between the two. The Boltons even burned Winterfell at one point before they bent the knee. The North stood long against invasion, since they were bordered on the north by the Night's Watch and the Wall, and not to the south by the Neck and Moat Cailin. Am I saying that right?
I just like Cailin.
Cailin? Yeah, that's it. Moat Cailin. The Andals attacked the eastern coast by sea, but were repeatedly defeated by the Starks and their bannermen. The Starks eventually defeated a large Andal invasion at the Battle of the Weeping Water, and then counterattacked against the Andals by invading Andalos with a large fleet and burning the Andals' lands. The Ironborn attacked by sea from the west and were driven out successfully many times, but still continue to raid to this day. The Starks raided the Wolf Den at the mouth of the White Knife, which was eventually given to the stewardship of the Manderleys when they fled the Reach and pledged fealty to House Stark. The Manderleys eventually built the city of White Harbor around the Wolf's Den as well.
So does anyone believe that the Starks ruled for 8,000 years? Because I can't.
Nope.
They might have not even as long as like history has been, because like which Maester was that? Maester Airy? Which Maester said that the 8,000 years was vastly overstated?
I don't know about Maesters, but I always point to the conversation between Jon and Sam in somewhere around in the library of Castle Black, and Sam is like saying that all these dates are bullshit, that it's probably like maybe a couple of 100 years instead of thousands of years.
Oh, that's when he was trying to like look back at the records of the Lord Commanders. He's like, we just don't have
there are knights before there were knights or something.
Well, that's brought up repeatedly in this, how like they, same thing with Valyrian steel swords when they couldn't have possibly been had Valyrian steel yet. That's kind of like historical retconning, I guess. But
speaking of which, like, did anyone find that the fact that they didn't talk about ice at all in the Kings of Winter funny? Because it's like, Ice was acquired 600 years ago or something like that.
I think it was
the name was
forced.
older still, or they said something.
Well, now I do.
That bugged me.
Yeah, I didn't think of it, but good point.
This book does gloss over a lot of stuff that you would, expect there to be chapters on. There's no chapter on cards, because it's touched on in the book. So,
but maybe that sword isn't that important for the maester who's writing this. Maybe he doesn't think that it's that important to make a whole section about a ancestral sword of the Starks.
But if you're talking about the Kings of Winter and they always hold this sword, that's my point, and I would have liked to know a little more.
But in the big scheme of things, like the Valyrian stuff, that's only showed up relatively recently. That would have been the last couple hundred years of their history, right?
Yeah, but
it's not like a
400 years.
There's not like a significant historical event related to ice like there is with Bright Roar. Like they lose it and then they send expeditions to find it. Like it's not that important. It's just always there in the background, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So they don't really need to mention it.
I was thinking about the immigration thing, because we know that the Blackwoods are also exiles maybe.
Well, they kind of did the opposite of the Manderleys, right? They were kicked out of the north and went to the Riverlands, right?
Yeah, and the Manderleys get kicked out of the Reach and go to the north, and I think that's interesting. I like the notion of that.
I think those are probably the two examples where they sort of retain the sort of identity of their former kingdom the most.
Yeah,
that I can think of.
Well, you still have the Royces, but they don't really count because they just held their ground in the Vale, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, with the First Men stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're not old god worshippers anymore. They just have the bronze armor because we have Sir Vaemor Royce and he's a knight, so he must be Fate of the Seven.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, you can be a knight without standing vigil. Actually, anyone.
Well, if you're knighted by Robert, then I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I was also interested in the whole language thing, right? Like how it's like the wall stopped the language from moving forward, and even though nothing else really of the Andals trickled up, not the religion, not anything else, but they switched languages, which is interesting because language is super important to religion also. So.
Yeah, but you see, in real life analogies, you can take the North, in Nordic countries, they all speak a Germanic sort of language, and even though they didn't have anything specifically in common with the Germans or further down, they still got the language through interchanging of cultures and people, and that didn't have anything to do with the religion specifically.
I think it has more to do with commerce than religion.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, that was one of the things that sort of struck me as I think Martin... Well, I mean, Martin doesn't necessarily get this wrong because he just doesn't want to deal with the problem of having, Arya and Ned and everybody speak a different language than the South. But it really seems like the North should still be speaking the old tongue if they were never conquered by the Andals and they didn't even really, they've only been part of the Seven Kingdoms for 300 years and... just all that stuff like that. They have contact with them, but, you would think the nobles would speak the common tongue maybe, but you would think, the peasants would still be speaking the old tongue.
I don't know. As I'm using the same analogy again, both Denmark, Sweden, and Norway speak a Germanic stem of the language.
Don't forget Iceland.
Yeah, you take Iceland or Faroe Islands, they don't necessarily have the same Germanic influence on them. Then they're secluded, like the people beyond the wall are secluded, but Norway, Sweden, and Denmark isn't really secluded, so they get through trade and interchanging of people and cultures, they get the language as well.
But that hasn't happened as much in the north, though.
Okay, in 8,000 years?
Well, sure. But I'm saying, they make such a big point about, the blood of these guys are the blood of the first men, blood of the first men, blood of the first men. It's not diluted. It's all this stuff, and they make a lot about how, it's hard to travel there and, all this stuff, all of the factors that make them isolated. But then it's just, it is weird anyway that the language is, completely the same. That's definitely weird because, it's
way too homogenous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If the continent of Westeros is as large as George says it is, there should be a dozen languages and hundreds of dialects. Was it Matt who said that George just doesn't want to bother with that.
Well, that's a good. I hate to want that to be the point, but a lot of this, I always have to remember that this all just made up. And when he wrote this book 25 years ago, he wasn't thinking. I always think of the interview we gave when they did the maps. The map book came out a couple years ago. He's like, I made this map 15 years ago, and then when you blow it up, there's a lot of blank space, and you got to fill in the space. So with this, that's what we've done with the culture and the history. We've blown it up, and he's got to fill it in, and that's what Elio and Linda did also. So it's a good argument, but it is just made up. I can't blame them for that.
The only reason I guess I point it out, because I don't usually care about that kind of thing, is just because they do make because George did invent the old tongue. The old tongue is a thing. It's just it doesn't seem to have transferred.
Right.
Properly,
but even beyond, they say that the wildlings still speak the old tongue, but from our interactions through John,
none of them do.
It's like the guys from the far north speak something different, right?
Oh, I think what the fuck are the ones with the cannibals? No, the
Thens?
They're Thens. They're not cannibals in the books, but the Thens do. Magnar is a old tongue word, but isn't it that the giants speak the old tongue still, and their names are like Magmar, Bundok, really long words, really long names.
One way, 1.1. Is that what you meant?
Something like. Well, you memorized it.
I did. I like the giant. I like that one. He's a good guy. 1.1.
Yeah, but are we supposed to think that the giants are sort of speaking a more sort of pure version of the old tongue, or is it because it doesn't seem like any sort of language that I could recognize, and then they have the names. They specifically mention that the Northerners have names like Stark, Wool, Umber, and Stout, but that's in the common tongue though, so.
It's all in the common tongue, yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I think you actually found a hole there, a giant hole. The names of Starks and Umbers and stuff like that. That's they kind of makes it very apparent that George didn't think it through.
Well, maybe Stark means wolf in the old tongue. Woe means awesome in the old tongue.
Yeah, I think he sort of tried to use sort of this, make up a language for the old tongue when he named Skagos and Skane. Those sort of sound more like primeval and sort of primitive, I suppose.
Yeah, and isn't there a House Magnar on Skagos, I believe? It's one of the few actual house names that we get.
Yeah.
Skagosi. And that's an old tongue word.
And they say Skagosi is old, the first language for rock people or something like that.
Stoneborn.
I
just think we should talk a little bit about the War of the Wolves, which
sounds awesome.
Sounds awesome, but it doesn't make me like the Starks, knowing that they killed the last giants and killed the children of the forest. So I kind of feel for Gavin Greywolf that he was sort of making a valiant last stand. He wasn't trying to, conquer Winterfell or something. So,
hey, he was coming right for us.
Right. He had a hoodie on. Oh, sorry.
But I mean, I don't know, the impression I get that the sort of children of the forest and the giants, they're just bitching because they're lost, but they were such great guys to begin with. Sure, they're fluffy and soft and big and
they built
all
a
that.
wall.
Yeah, but they're not they probably eat people and they're assholes, and children of the forest do blood sacrifice, and they have really creepy nails. They're not people. Come on, let's not be too sympathetic towards them.
I'm not, but they're a race of beings that have almost been wiped off the planet. But yeah, they also never cut down trees and they never destroyed the land.
But they use bark for their armor, so you got to figure some trees died after getting their bark cut off.
Maybe they're super vegans, they only touch the bark if it falls off naturally, and just bang up against the tree. Oh, this bark fell off. I can make a crappy shield out of it. No.
So they basically just small evil elves.
There's a redundancy there.
Go on, Peter.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're all elves are this little shitty things creeping in the shadows, fucking wood sprites.
Yes, elves, not elves. Elves are different.
Was there a specific mention of after the War of the Wolves that the Gavin Greywolf's daughters were married into the Stark line? Because I figured this might have been where the Starks got the sort of walking gene into their bloodline.
Yeah, I read that too and thought the same thing. I was like, oh, interesting.
But I don't know when they took the wolf or the sigil or the dire wolf anyway.
Yeah, I'm wondering if all the actual sigils like that has to be relatively recent. If that's something that came over with the Andals, even though the Andals didn't take over the North, their culture seeped through. So do you think they had all these sigils worked out beforehand, or that's something that once they started mingling with the South?
Oh yeah, that's probably a good
that's part
point,
of the chivalry stuff that came over with them, right?
Yeah, probably
Yes.
that's like when they have to make like House Fen a house when they marry the guy to the Alice Karstark, they have to make up like so I guess that might have been happening with the Andals and shit like that. And the Umbers were just like, yeah, let's put a giant in chains there. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
our sigil.
the Boltons get the message and they look up at their torture chamber and be like, that guy.
Yeah, just picture like an emissary coming from King's Land or from the Reach, like, you all need shields now. What do you want? A bear. What do you want? A fist. Alligator. Yeah, just very like you can think about this, guys, but no, that's what we want. Trees.
Well, in real history, it's closely tied to battles and battle standards. You want to have a standard to recognize with, and through time, each new army or new leader wouldn't have the same battle standard as his forefathers. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the Boltons at some point just had flayed men or had skin of flayed men on as battle standard maybe. And it sort of became into their crest.
Well, if
and
the Starks
Their
were
shields were made out of human flesh. Oh.
something like that. I think it's like that. I think it's more like whatever the king at the moment they had to choose their house crest had as a battle standard. It usually turns into like their house crest. That's at least how it is in real history.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So if the Starks had a tendency to wear wolf pelts or whatever, that would make sense.
Yeah, or just if there was a one of the kings at that specific point where it became prevalent to have like sigils, the guy would, if he was called like a wolf, the gray wolf or some sort of wolf, he would probably just choose, okay, well, I'll choose a dire wolf because that's what I feel like is right for our house. Yeah, it's
How far
usually,
back do they go like with the crypts beneath Winterfell, because they have the stone wolves near the statues or on the statues, like those aren't those supposed to go back like 1,000 years ago as well?
Well, I'm sure they don't go back as long as they claim, because they would
Yeah.
that always boggled my mind, like when Bran and Mira and they're all hanging out down there and they say it goes on forever, but when they first built it, there's no way for them to know how big the crypts need to be, so I can't imagine that there's thousands of years of dead lords down there. It just doesn't make sense unless they're building over and over.
Which also doesn't make sense because the most recent is a topmost crypt.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the most recent be like, oh shit, we gotta dig another crypt like underneath?
Well, let's just get some small folk to carry them downstairs.
Plus the dragon takes up a lot of room down there.
Do you guys feel like this section is a little bit less thought out than the rest?
No.
I feel like there's not so much stuff to talk about, but just things that I was fascinated by than there were in other sections.
I think we had more on the north already, so a lot of this, so there's kind of less for us to get here.
Yeah, I mean,
north section.
Yeah, I think I agree with Alex because I was just mixing a drink and was on mute. That like we really got a lot of North history, just like Bran walking through the catacombs, going, well, some Starks were good and some Starks were bad, but they were all Starks.
Well, it's basically like recounting those people here. Like, as you said, we got these mostly from Bran's chapters, like these guys that just sit down. Like, here.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it feels like it's less on themes and more on details, this section, than more the other sections are.
Right. Like, from Tyrion, we know from his grandfather, right? And, like, Lan the Clever. And in between that, they can just make up whatever the fuck they want to. But, like, with the Starks, I feel like we get a lot more history.
Yeah.
One of the things we did find out was the specifics about them repelling the Andal invasion and the Ironborn, and it seems that King Theon Stark was pretty much the driving force behind a lot of that. he was called the Hungry Wolf, and he basically didn't just repel the Andals, but he got a fleet together and took it to their side of the narrow sea and fucked them up a little bit, which I really
You gotta
appreciated.
respect that.
Yep, with that corpse.
It's like, you come into my house. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, Argos the Andal. He basically tied his corpse to the prow of his ship to scare the shit out of the Andals.
Yep.
So I did appreciate that. And his name was Theon, so he's given Theon a good name.
Well, the current day Theon putting a bad stain on this Theon's name.
Right, but we're learning about it the other way around. So.
Well,
it's just like Joffrey, right? And the Princess and the Queen. There's another Joffrey there.
Wasn't he like one of the Valerian's lovers or something?
Yeah. So that must be better than
was
this
he
Joffrey.
like the Knight of Kisses or whatever?
Yeah, so that's definitely better. He hasn't done anything worse.
Yeah.
Dude, you can name a sack of shit Joffrey, and it would be better than the fucking character in the book.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, right?
Just to go back to the sigils for a second, I got that page open here. I just have to say, fuck you, glovers. Seriously.
Oh, the Iron Fist?
Yeah, it's just a glove.
It's in their name. That makes sense in an illiterate society when you just see the glovers. Hey, that's the glovers.
Yeah, it's Hobbit sense.
The Umbers put a giant, so I don't feel like the Umbers read better than anybody else, though.
I don't think anybody reads.
I'm just saying.
But the fact that any Umbers read is a little bit of a stretch.
No, what's his name went off to the Citadel and did some other stuff.
Fucked a guy and killed him.
Horsebane.
I guess they never said that he read.
He was about to, but then he fucked a guy and killed him.
So we also hear the Ironborn have basically been plaguing them just as long as they've been fucking with everyone down south also. But they there was the little line about how the what is it, not Sea Dragon Point, Cape Kraken. Well, it makes sense. Cape Kraken is, although it's in the north, you're probably more related to the Ironborn because they've been raping and pillaging for so many years.
Also, I mean, I may have brought this up on the forums, but besides the Greyjoy Rebellion, how the fuck does the kingdom put up with them still reaving as a United Kingdom?
Well, it seems like officially they don't, but they still do. But you need a strong king to say stop doing that, and there rarely is that.
Yeah, I know, but you figure the war in the north is dude, these guys keep on fucking sacking our villages on the shore.
Well, they're not sacking the lord's castles, they're sacking the small folks like fishing villages, and lords are just hearing it from the small folk. Yeah, that sucks for you, yeah. Sounds pretty bad, but Iron Islands are pretty far away though, and I hear it rains a lot there, and I don't really like the sea, so yeah.
And plus, it would take cooperation between the Starks, the Reach, the Lannisters to end the the Iron Islands, and I don't see them working together to get that done anytime soon.
Yeah, but in Dunk and Egg, aren't the Lannisters and the Starks working together to put down Dagon Greyjoy's rebellion?
That's a big rebellion, though.
I don't know. I just feel like it's we have a nice cohesive 7 kingdoms. Well, we're still reaving. Asha was reaving. It's what the fuck? How was she reaving?
No, I think Asha was reaving in Essos, pretty much.
Yeah, they said there was one of the kings who said you can't reave, but you can go reave in Essos and just leave us alone.
Yeah, not to turn into an Iron Islands podcast, but the whole Iron Islands section is basically they reaved a bunch and they got beat back, and they reaved a bunch and they got beat back, and they reaved a bunch and they got beat back.
Stop reaving. Hit them on the nose. Say no.
Rub their face in it.
And then
you give them a treat when they don't reave.
Exactly.
Treat them like dogs. Okay, we've solved it.
No, I mean, I was
on Theon.
Yeah, how well did that work out?
Well, that and something else.
Oh, he has no dick.
Neutering. Yeah, neutering always works on dogs.
Dude, that's not neutering.
I hope they also took the
I hope we were going to get through this without saying root and stem, but we didn't.
Nope.
All right.
Twice.
All right, moving on.
Gentlemen.
All right.
Hello, lady.
The Mountain Clans. I did 3 really very small, brief summaries for these 3, so if we can just read the whole recaps and then just discuss all 3 together.
I can read it.
Okay.
All right. The Mountain Clans / the Stoneborn of Skagos / the Crannogmen. The Mountain Clans of the North are loyal to the Starks, but can be quarrelsome at times among themselves and force the Starks to adjudicate. The mightiest of the clans are the Wolves, and they have been forced to battle the Ironborn in their western raids. Bear Island is rumored to have been won by the Starks in a wrestling match, which I really hope is true. The Stoneborn of Skagos reside on a large island off the eastern coast of Eastwatch by the sea. Many dark rumors abound regarding the Skagosi, including human sacrifice and cannibalism. They are also believed to ride unicorns. At one point in their history, they raided the nearby island of Skane, killed, raped, or ate everyone, and left it abandoned. Eventually, the Skagosi were defeated by King Brandon, what is that, 11?
Ninth.
Sorry, I don't know Romans. And their fleet was destroyed. Once Skagosi eventually rose to command the Night's Watch, although sworn to House Stark, the Skagosi have risen up in rebellion as recently as 100 years ago, but were successfully put down by the Starks. The Crannogmen of the Neck are rumored to have intermarried with the Children of the Forest in ancient days, and their blood still runs green with the Green Seer's powers. They are known to poison their arrows and darts, and have made trouble for generations for the River Lords to the south. After bending the knee to the Starks, they remain stout bannermen, and are led by the Reeds of Greywater Watch. My personal headcanon is that everyone on Skagos is actually, like, super, super refined, and they're totally, like, modern and like this great advanced polite society and want nothing to do with everybody else. So they create these rumors that they're just the most horrible people ever.
I like that theory, but I don't think
that
it's
is great.
close. Judging by this very gruff fellow in the illustration here, yeah. I'm sure he's civilized.
Yeah, you know, they don't have to look civilized to be civilized.
Right.
But underneath he has like the white tie. He's going to dinner. It's just cold out. Like,
exactly. I mean, come on. If Davos lands on Skagos and like he sees somebody like stalking up to him and is like, "Hello, sir, do you have a reservation?"
Lord Seaworth, would you care to dine with us?
Who the hell said that? Do you prefer white meat or dark meat? It's definitely not human. No matter what you've heard.
Yeah, the guy in the picture is wearing his formal horns, so I think this has merit.
I know, because I came up with it.
I'm happy with that theory, if that's what people remember from this episode, is that the Skagosi are super civilized. Yeah, so we also get the little throwaway line about Bear Island. But of course the Maester has to, sober us by saying it was probably resting in words rather than wrestling with deeds. But yeah, I'd like to think that was true. How did that happen? Was it just a drunken bet, or was it a war averted by a champion of wrestlers, which I kind of like? But,
yes.
That to me seems just as plausible as anything else. Like that, an island won through wrestling seems equally plausible as to an entire other island literally being decimated by rapists, murderers, and cannibals.
Well,
yeah. Meanwhile, the other guy's like, double or nothing for the rills.
For the
no, I was thinking about. I got associations to the whole story about Rome and how they went to a outlying village and killed all the men and raped all the women and took them to.
Oh, the Sabines.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that when I heard about the Skane and Skagosi.
Yeah, wasn't that because they literally didn't have enough women? They're like, we need women, and they didn't so much as rape them as marry them, and they became the mothers of Rome.
Well, the way I heard it,
didn't happen.
Oh, I know that.
The way I heard it was essentially they went in, they didn't have almost any women or any women at all, and then they just went over there. And through the first, they wanted to look like they were friends with them, and then they just murdered all the men, and then raped the women and said, "Well, you don't have any men to protect you, and you've already have our children in your bellies, so why don't you go home with us?"
So what's the problem here?
Yeah, that's called dating in Finland.
Oh.
God damn it.
I don't like this story. Let's move on.
Okay.
So, Dan, they mentioned that your buddies, the Ibanese, might have interbred with the Skagosis since they're all hairy.
Lucky for them.
Wouldn't that have been tough though? Because from reading the Ibonese chapter, like most.
Would you just get mules?
You get unicorns. That's how it happens.
There you go.
Well, didn't they say that the children of Ibonese mating with regular humans, I guess, is usually stillborn, or was that only on one side?
Yeah, I think it was both. Stillborn or just sterile.
Sterile, okay.
Sure. So there's not probably...
mules. Bastards.
And we got the reference to the Annals of the Black Centaur, for those of you who play Pictionary. That's a classic one, Annals of the Black Centaur. Mentions a Skane or a Skagosi who served in the Night's Watch.
Oh yeah, he's Lord Commander, right?
Commander Crowl. Yeah.
What's the it's a house in the Reach that has the Centaur as their sigil.
Are you asking us about sigils, Peter? Because usually
I think it's Caswell maybe.
There you go. Yeah, I kind of felt bad for the Skagosi when the Stark King basically beat them back and said you can't have boats anymore. That kind of like put them in their place, but that felt like that was a little overkill because I don't know how much damage. Like when the Skagosi rebel, I don't see them as invading. They're just like, well, can't we just do our thing because we're out here by ourselves anyway?
Yeah, they're like taking the first night and like eating people and.
Yeah, but that's us saying
the
that
Starks
about
are the Starks are like not cool, man.
Skagosi Rebellion. This is going to be a Duncan egg story, right? Isn't this?
No, I think it happened beforehand. They're gonna do Dagon's rebellion.
Wait, what?
Right?
I think we might get like the aftermath of the Skagosi rebellion, because that's why I think that's supposed to be probably why Winterfell's being ruled by all the she-wolves, because the men died fighting in the Skagosi rebellion.
Oh, maybe. That's a good call.
The rebellion is in 226.
Isn't that it's during the reign of King Darren though, right? Isn't that before
Darren the Good?
Is that during Duncan Egg, or he's the guy that came?
No,
out
that's
after
why they're going to the north, and that's why the next thing is supposed to be the She-Wolves of Winterfell. But he decided to do.
Yeah, but wasn't Darren before Maekar, and the Duncan Egg is during Maekar's? Well, the last one is when Maekar's king.
I think they start with Darren though, and then Maekar becomes king. Either in between the second and the third one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, people thought that Ned's mom was Skagosi, or was it his grandma? I don't know.
I think it was a grandmother, but
grandmother. Yeah.
But
I was mad that wasn't true.
Family trees revealed that it was another Stark. Wah, wah.
Surprise.
Surprise incest.
So, House Centaur is House Caswell.
Way to go, Peter.
I know my shit. Yeah.
Well, that is indisputable.
Because you said it like it was a question.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to brag.
So we don't really get much new information about the Crannogmen. It's all like the same rumors that they have webbed feet and that they, eat frogs. But can we put the lizard lion? I thought there was more debate regarding lizard lions, that they weren't crocodiles, but apparently they are just crocodiles, right?
Yeah, that's what I always assumed.
Perhaps
they are
alligators.
crocodiles. You look at the sigil of House Reed. That's a Lacoste brand, basically.
Oh yeah, it is. I never realized that.
So yeah.
Somebody argued that there's a distinct reference to crocodiles in one of Danny's chapters, that they're named crocodiles and not lizard lions.
Yeah,
so that could be cultural, I suppose, like that they call them crocodiles in the East and lizard lions in Westeros.
Yeah, exactly. There's like
they could be alligators in Westeros and crocodiles in Essos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
there's alligators in North America, but no crocodiles.
I just think it's like in antiquity. Some of the I think it was the Romans or some people in the antiquity, they had a tendency to call anything that was sort of predatory, as they called them lions, especially
lions
if they were
or dragons or something.
Yeah, something like that. So you would have a beetle called a lion, and you would have they would call specific things. They would call them lions as well. So I think it's maybe a connection to that in real history, that he just wanted to say, okay, this is the lion of lizards.
Cool. Also, I guess they have way scarier stuff in Essos. So, they could just give it, a normal name. Whereas this massive, lake predator in Westeros is more of a big deal.
Yeah. I guess so.
All the other thing I was just about the Crown Eggman is the floating castles. Like, that can't be a real thing, right? The castles can't move. But I think that's more the marshes just are constantly changing and looks like they're moving. Like, there's no way a castle can be there one day and not then when they go to find it, it's gone. Unless it's
They might have like floating, like these sort of platforms that they make their strongholds on or something.
Like
that
riverboats.
So you think they're intentionally making them to be mobile, not like they're sinking and just...
Yeah, like Xochimilco. It's down in Mexico, like just south of Mexico City. And basically they made a bunch of floating islands that were just farmlands. And now they house like all sorts of vendors and one really fucking creepy guy that hung dolls' heads all around his island.
What's wrong with that?
What?
Yeah.
Sound like you know him.
I've been there. It was scary. Being able to buy a margarita while on a boat, while being like serenaded by mariachis from another boat and eating awesome tacos from another boat while just going through these islands, it's pretty rad. But yeah, they're basically all floating islands.
That's cool.
So yeah, anyway, I sort of did think that was a real thing. That people kind of thought it was like, and it's not like something weird or fantastical. It's just that they seem a teeny bit, not primitive, but like kind of go with the flow anyway. Like, no pun intended, but like, it made sense to me that they would be like, oh, it's moving. Okay, we'll just keep going with this.
I think it's just if they really are interbred with the children of forest, it would feel natural for them to have like ways to be elusive to normal people.
Well, they've been elusive for 5 books, so it makes sense that they continue to be so.
Except for 2.
Yeah.
That was a flashback, right?
No, you mean Mira.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But we didn't actually see.
Oh, okay.
Jojen was not elusive enough.
Prophecies are rarely not elusive or vague.
But yeah, I always, in my mind, I always like imagine sort of like an arc, in a sense. But I can hear that you sort of thought of it as like more like a like a bamboo,
like
city.
A big raft or something.
Yeah, raft city. Yeah, instead. Yeah, well, both works for me.
Yeah, I mean,
hang on 1 second. Why would the children of the forest, if they were related to Jojen and Mira, why would they feed Bran Jojen?
They didn't feed.
Well, they haven't.
They haven't done that.
Well, I mean, Jojen probably has more magic blood in him, so it's probably good shit to feed Bran. Like, better to
but
have
they
some.
haven't.
Well, they're not gonna feed him like one of them their own. I mean, Jojen.
No, but I'm saying they haven't at all.
Yeah, no.
Like, we don't know that until we read it in a book.
I think it's pretty much fact at this point.
Really?
That's based off of a few very interpretive and very small facts.
It just sounds right, though.
You're like, oh shit. No, I actually don't go with that theory. I just don't think that it wouldn't there have been some? I mean, they've been there for ages already, like up in Children of the Forest land. Don't you think one of the Children of the Forest would have been like, "Yo, we family" or something like that?
Yeah, I don't picture Leaf giving him this is the good stuff here.
Yep, went down south 200 years ago, found it, aged well.
No, I think that theory is basically on the same page, same level as R plus L equals J.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think
that's
way more evidence.
Same validity.
It's very hard to tell if anyone's being serious when they're talking about Jojen paste. It's
just fun to talk about.
Yes, which is why I brought it up. But
I'm serious. I think it happened, but it's nowhere near strong enough evidence, really. Not compared.
No, actually, what happened was he drank the Merling King's blood, who's actually Varys.
And then an ice dragon's going to swoop in and save the day. Yeah, so you can all fuck off with that stuff.
I was talking to someone at the premiere last night, and they were trying to convince me that, oh my god, Prince Rhaegar was a faceless man who actually killed Robert at the Trident, then took his face and pretended to be Robert. And then when Robert died, that faceless man went into Jack and Agar.
Wow,
Yep,
I like that one.
Sounds
I
legit.
like that one.
I didn't talk to that person for
You moved your seat after that.
Yeah. I would tip my hat to that person. That is
you shouldn't
one
talk
of the
shit
great
either.
theories I've heard for a long while.
That person's got to be a VOK listener too, so I wouldn't talk shit. I mean, that's our people.
Yeah, except that Jack and Nagar was leaving King's Landing. No, that doesn't make sense.
Are you actually thinking about it?
This is how it starts.
It's
And the part that hangs you up is the Jack and Hagar part.
It is a brain worm now, and I just don't like it.
Note that King Rickard Stark was the Stark king who basically brought the Crabagmen under their rule when he married one of their daughters.
Oh, I want to mention Lord Barthagan Stark called Bath Blacksword. I like swords. Why is he called Blacksword? He was in the Skagosi Rebellion, died up there. I mean, I guess he had a black sword if he had ice, but did he do something specific with that black sword?
Are we talking about ice again?
Well, they definitely had it at this point. It was only 100 years ago, right?
But what would you do to get your sword black?
Unicorn blood is known to be black, so that's probably why. Killed a lot of unicorns with it.
I thought it was silver.
I don't know.
Oh, we didn't talk about
Harry
the unicorns.
Potter movies.
Well, no,
Which
I
means
haven't
that they're
seen
silver.
those.
Right.
I mean, not the movies. It's silver in the book, ergo.
Canon.
Exactly.
But what do you think the unicorns actually are?
I really want them to be unicorns. Don't give me goats. No, I want a unicorn.
I think
and only women can ride them.
Don't be
what?
Miss Andrist now.
I think
it's just the unicorns, not me.
But you don't think that would make it feel like I have a couple things if they happen, it's going to feel too fantasy for me, and one of them is a unicorn. The other is an ice dragon. But you don't think that would take you out of it? If you actually see a herd of unicorns running through the Skagosi Mountains?
No, because it's George R. R. Martin, and they're not going to be fluffy, sparkly, pink tails. They'll be.
They're not my magic.
Similar to goats, but
ponies, but yeah.
They'll be real, right? Yeah, they'll be.
I hope they talk. Yeah, I bet chapter is gonna end with Davos being impaled by a unicorn.
No.
If we waited 7, 8, 9, whatever years for the next Davos chapter and he dies in the first Davos chapter, that's gonna be my red wedding moment, throwing it across the room.
Yep.
But I figured that the unicorns are probably woolly rhinos because there's other extinct sort of ice age animals in the north. So woolly rhinos would make sense, and they would make some pretty cool battle mounts for barbarians as well.
But that's on the nose, not on the forehead.
Oh, it's a fucking horn.
Narwhals. They're like narwhals that learned how to walk.
No, they're sure-footed, so they're
unicorns that learned how to swim.
I think someone would have noticed a giant rhino walking around, whether it had a horn or not. And we haven't heard much talk of rhinos.
One of Sam's chapters, they do mention that they can sometimes be glimpsed from the sea, so they gotta be pretty fucking big. And I don't think there's any mention of rhinos in Essos or anything like that, so I'm putting it down to the woolly rhinos.
Okay, you can have that.
Seconded.
Yes!
The motion carries. Moving on.
I say big awesome goat.
Goats are never awesome. Well, except on the plate, maybe.
You've seen them walk up sides of mountains.
They're awesome
they're
both
pretty.
on and off the plate.
No.
Jamaican goat, man.
They're not cool in the least. They're just
We'll save goat talk for the next episode. Anyone has anything else to say on goats or just unicorns?
I'd like to punch one in the face if I, ever met a unicorn.
Oh, you'd like to try?
Did you have a bad brony experience? Why would you want to punch a unicorn?
For the same reason I want to punch a narwhal in the face. Why not?
Because of the horn.
Yeah, but it's not in the face. I'm not gonna punch him on the horn.
It would be
stupid.
really hard to punch it on the face if the horn is angled right, without getting skewered.
Anyway, it would be a good story
for everyone watching.
That's a good point.
I'll try to get Justin to draw a quick painting of you punching a unicorn for the episode art. I'll commission that.
That will be fantastic. Thank you.
The Lords of Winterfell. Who wants to read the recap for that one? Alex, would you like to read the recap for the Lords of Winterfell?
You have my vocal cords. Alright. The Lords of Winterfell. King Torrhen Stark became the first Lord Stark and Warden of the North after he bent the knee to Aegon Targaryen. His sons were not all as loyal. The Starks supported a minority for Princess Rhaenys during the Great Council of 101, and supported Princess Rhaenyra during the Dance of the Dragons, and later her son Aegon III Targaryen. Many Starks died during the invasion of Dorne, including Rickard Stark, the heir to Winterfell. The Starks successfully fought off a king beyond the wall in 226 AC, as well as constant raiding by the Ironborn on their western shores. Lord Rickard's death in King's Landing eventually led to the start of Robert's Rebellion and the eventual fall of House Targaryen.
That is so not true. Lord Rickard's death did not lead to the rebellion.
Oh, that was me. I just put that in there. That was part of it?
It was part of it, but it wasn't
part of it.
It wasn't the instigation.
All right. It was a contributing factor. How about that?
It was
I don't want to bring down the nerd rage of everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Lyanna, Rhaegar, and then Jon Arryn being like, "No, I'm not going to send you, Ned."
Well, maybe
come
Stark
on,
was
Greg.
like,
oh, right. I took like 4 hours out of my day to type up these damn summaries, people.
Sorry.
You just lost like 100 house points.
Okay.
Hang his entrails from a tree.
Hey, we're civilized here.
All right, we'll have you for dinner on Skagos.
Wait, have me for dinner or have me for dinner? Let's bring Chianti and fava beans. Jeez.
Those are for the unicorn.
Who did that? Who was that?
No,
it's how it was multiple people.
Cook for humans.
It is a cookbook.
Yep.
So, yes, the Lords of Winterfell. We do get we knew about King Torrhen Stark as the king who knelt, but we also get some, more information about the last king beyond the wall, which I thought was pretty interesting, Raymond Redbeard, which seems to have been destroyed not so much by the Night's Watch, but by the combined force of the Umbers and the Starks. And I kind of felt a little bad for, was it Lord Commander Jolly Come Lately, or whatever his name was?
Yeah, Musgood.
Musgood. Jolly Jack Musgood. Yeah.
Sleepy Jack. Sleepy Jack.
I think that might have been intentional. He knew the Starks and numbers were there. Why risk a dwindling Night's Watch when you've got 2 giant kingdoms there who can fight your battle for you?
I mean, that's fair enough, but...
It was his job, the one thing he had to do, so... Yeah.
Right. I mean, that... Yeah.
What's it? How long ago was this? Because wasn't there some, like, when the wildlings are coming beyond the wall or past the wall, like, there's somebody who's, like, related to Raymond Redbeard somehow? Like, Tormund is like, this guy is like his grandson or something.
Well, I thought that would make sense, but, like, in all of Tormund's boasts, and does he ever claim that he's related to Raymond Redbeard? Because, like,
he was talking about another guy who was coming, like, under the wall to get away from the Whites when the Wildling Horde was passing through.
Yeah, he's a king of his hairy butt crack, I'm pretty sure he says.
Yeah, the whole point was that nobody cares.
Yeah, it's not a blood inheritance.
So I guess it's new information that the Dragonstock, that he was a pretty big player in the aftermath of the Dance with the Dragons. So at least we get that from the book in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't he march like an entire army into a lake and they die?
No, that was his buddy, Roddy the Ruin.
No,
Stark was the one who, like, went down, became Hand of the King for a day, murdered everyone, and then resigned.
Yeah,
pretty cool guy, Hour of the Wolf.
Yeah, that was the best.
Yeah, I've always liked the guy even before Princess and the Queen. Like, I think the one mention about him was that he was like the best swordsman that Aemon the Dragon Knight had ever faced, or something like that. So he's a pretty cool guy, and Cregan is a cool name as well.
It is a cool name.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not more Creegans in the present day. There probably should be.
Maybe
it seems like Brandon is like the most popular name, but there should be some more Creegans.
Yeah, there was Brandon Snow, who was Torrhen Stark's bastard brother, who wanted to kill the dragons with the weirwood arrows. Like that was like a sneak peek preview of this the World of Ice and Fire book that Elio like put up on Westeros a couple of years ago about the 3 arrows. But that never actually like led to anything. It was just like he wanted to kill the dragons, and I think Bran sees in a weirwood vision that like a pale youth carves like some arrows from the tree. So I guess that was the plan to kill the dragons. I guess you can, like, Bloodraven has the Raven's Teeth. They're the archers, his personal god, and they got weirwood bows. So I guess you can put some charms on the wood or something because it's magical, like maybe like an +1 accuracy arrows or something like that.
Well, they wouldn't even need to be, because aren't weirwood bows like the most, aside from Dragonbone, they're the best bows. So they've got like a +1 anyway, right?
Oh, but isn't
or the bows from the Summer Isles. Which one are those?
Yeah.
I believe we scientifically determined that those were the best.
Golden
Heart.
But they don't get to leave, so They don't trade.
But maybe the arrows are like Yondu's arrow in Guardians of the Galaxy. They sort of can control its trajectory in a sense.
Oh boy.
I just always thought that like Raven's Teeth was a really dumb name. I thought
Why?
Because ravens don't have teeth.
Exactly, and it's like no, the Raven's claws. Obviously, the Raven's claws.
Or the raven's beaks. No, that's sillier.
But the Raven's teeth would be white weirbo arrows, right?
Yeah, but I think it's like a private joke of Blood Ravens. Like he's the kind of guy who would make like a pun and laugh about it to himself.
That he wouldn't care if anyone else found funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually think Bloodraven cared a lot about what people thought at that point.
Well,
Really?
I think he might have been kind of like Tyrion, that he wanted to be like this, that he didn't care about what people thought of him, but he actually did. Like,
That would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, because he had that guy brought over and then killed under amnesty or whatever, right?
Yeah, but that was after.
After what?
After the, I'm saying like maybe this was kind of like his making, you know, like the rebellion. Wasn't that after the Blackfire Rebellion? It was, right? Because he was
After a Blackfire Rebellion or two.
The last.
right. So at that point, he was more, you know. I mean, I don't like by the time we meet him in Dunkin' Egg, I don't think he cares what people think about him. But like,
I mean, he was like a teenager in the Blackfire Rebellion, or
yeah,
maybe like early 20s or something like that. He was pretty young.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think.
Young and stupid and killing your half brother and his sons.
And we also get the the line about the pact of ice and fire between Cregan. This was made right at the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons, right, when Rhaenyra sent her son up there to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
But did they ever? I don't remember them calling it the Pact of Ice and Fire in Princess and the Queen. This is the first time they actually call it that, right?
Yeah. Guess so.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a pretty cool marriage, to have an official name for your marriage agreement, even though it never happened.
So does this leave any merit to the whole leaving an egg and maybe having a dragon hatch under Winterfell?
Well, they say, like, for Maxis or whatever, like, thought to left a dragon egg hatch underneath Winterfell, but boo. Like, he doesn't believe it.
Well,
No,
he says Mushroom does.
Yeah, but we know from that most of what Mushroom says actually is true, so that's why I tend to... I might not believe it 100%, but it's not an ice dragon, so it's fine. It would just be a regular dragon. So
Okay.
But Mushroom wasn't there, right? Mushroom wasn't at Winterfell.
No, but he was palling around with all the powerful players during the Dance of Dragons, so he might have...
Yeah, they might have
Yeah,
told.
but he was assisting Rhaenyra at that point. Like, he was not... Isn't that the thing? Like, this was when she had the baby and it was all wrecked and he, like, carried it out to the yard to be burned. Am I making stuff up again?
I don't think so. No, I mean, he was definitely on Dragon.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
oh, good. Nobody knows what's going on. Cool. That's good.
No, I think that's right. And, you can imagine, like, Jacaerys flies off to Winterfell, his dragon lays a bunch of eggs there, he's like, oh. And then he tells people when he gets back, and Mushroom hears about it. So it's not that crazy.
Yeah,
that Mushroom
dragons would want to lay a clutch of eggs near like a seismic or a volcano or a like warm.
Yeah,
like,
something in their DNA, right?
Yeah, I think it's just they want to they want to make babies near volcanoes, essentially.
It is known that dragons want to make babies near volcanoes.
Well, Dragonstone is a giant volcanic island.
No, it's just like saying that. I wasn't disagreeing. Like, that does make sense. I just like the way you said it.
Okay.
Guys, that's going to be the awesome name of my sellsword company.
Bringing it back.
So yeah, I was just thinking, there is volcanic activity under Winterfell because they have the
activity. It's hot.
Volcanic or dragon activity.
Seismic,
thermal,
some sort.
Thermal,
yeah, but that's essentially linked to volcanic activity.
Yeah, all hot springs or geothermal heat that's like on fault lines, I think. Or like volcanic based, basically.
Yeah, so
it'd be like Iceland or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm continually skeptical of this because it's been so long and I don't see what the point is of a baby dragon in Winterfell now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think necessarily has to be
No, I don't. What, Bran's gonna ride a dragon?
Maybe.
He's not gonna walk. He will fly.
But he's already flown as a raven.
Yeah, wasn't that what that meant? I mean,
I know.
I've heard so many
Ravening
people
around all the time.
tinfoil stuff.
No, but I've heard a lot of people say
Play
that, like,
along.
oh, that obviously means a dragon. And I was like, no, that obviously means he's gonna morph into a bird's brain.
Didn't morph into one. He changed his skin. Come on. Use the
Maybe
correct
both.
terms.
Wasn't the major theory that it's the burning of Winterfell that would have made the egg hatch?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it wouldn't be.
And
Burning of
Bran
Winterfell and
sees a smoke dragon or something like that.
No, Summer sees something weird.
Yeah, Summer.
Nah, okay.
Isn't it like twisting up like a dragon? It's not like.
Are you claiming that A Song of Ice and Fire readers are reading too much into a single word? Because I don't believe that.
No, and I believe I do the same thing. This one has always confused me a little bit because, like, I mean, we know that dragons don't even, like, they don't eat raw meat. So, like, yeah, there's a lot of bodies around, but it's not like the dragon's just gonna go, like, okay, whatever, I'll just, like, chow down on all these dead people.
No, the dragons, they have fire so they can
But
char the
Dany
meat.
had to roast her baby dragon's meat for them at first, right?
But she was cuddling them.
Well, I don't personally. I don't believe that. Personally, I don't believe that they had there was a dragon under Winterfell to begin with.
Oh, no, I don't
think there was seismic like hot springs and stuff like that. I think that's what it was there, and they just hatched when Winterfell burned because it takes fire and blood to make dragons, and there was plenty of both at that time.
It takes fire and blood and like major ass magic,
Which is in Winterfell. Winterfell is magic.
Hatched in
balls.
But hang
Sorry?
on, when dragons hatch like during Targaryen times, like there wasn't like they didn't have like blood sacrifices or anything. It was just like, oh, is this one gonna hatch? Maybe,
No, that's a different way of doing it. If you well, actually, we don't specifically know, but you know that they usually put them down in the crypts with babies. So maybe it's like sort of like you're connecting the souls of those two like creatures.
Well, we know that was something like that going because the dragons did seem to be like psychically or emotionally bonded to their riders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but is that just culture though? Because you can also tame like a dragon that's already been ridden or a wild dragon. Like if you sort of grow up with the hatchling, I suppose you would have a connection to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything deeper to it than like a regular animal.
You feed it a goat every day, and then you get to ride it. So that's the other way
Yeah.
to do it.
right. Like Arryn asshole, right?
Bright flame.
First
Right. He took what was it? Vermithor? Like whatever.
No,
I don't think there were any
Aemond.
dragons left.
Aemond. That's
Aemond, yeah.
Aemond.
He's a cool guy. Don't
The other
call him an
asshole
asshole.
beginning with an A. There's a couple
Okay.
of them.
Aemond.
This is why I'm anti-Targaryen. But like, he did that like super easily. And I mean, the reason I take issue with these theories is like I feel like there is something there, but it just doesn't make sense to me practically. So like,
Yeah, the thing that I think about reading this too is Martin likes to troll his readers sometimes, and Elio and Linda have heard every crazy theory more than we've heard. So, I tend to think maybe that little mushroom mention is just someone trolling us and someone else elbowing someone else in the ribs and laughing about it, and then them calling George and saying, ah, ha, 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 look what we did. And George saying, that's great. It's just like the thing I put about Jon Snow's mother in the beginning of Dance with Dragons.
right. No. He really.
They all high-fived.
It was a sister man. It was a sister woman, like for sure. Totes.
John doesn't have webbed feet, so there's a flaw in your theory.
Boom.
Well, maybe he
Who's seen
did.
his feet? We haven't seen his feet yet.
Yeah.
But he
My
clenches
gosh.
and unclenches his hands all the time, so that would be
his
like...
body, and he's gonna have webbed feet.
Why is Melisandre, when you said Melisandre is going to be studying his body, sounds so creepy. Be like,
because she's several hundred years old.
Head to
Okay,
toe.
on Game of Thrones, Melisandre will be studying his body. In the books, she'll be studying his body.
It's all about the tone.
I must have missed something because I think in the book she also wants his body, not just his body.
Well, she does, but now he's dead, so.
Well, that doesn't usually stop her, does it?
Is it FT Ward who would like us to mention that there's already been a shadow baby created at the wall between her and John? Or is that
Yes.
someone
No,
else?
I'm pretty sure he'd like to mention that with the new search thing through all books, you can search potatoes and it doesn't come up.
We don't need to talk about it anymore.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good thing or reflects bad on us that we've spent the most time talking about a literally one sentence throwaway line in this book.
Yep.
Should we move on
Vassals
to
of
Winterfell then?
Kingsgrave.
Yeah, let's move on to Winterfell. Who hasn't done a recap yet?
Boy.
I would be delighted to read
Oh,
it.
please do.
Winterfell is rumored to have been built by Brandon the Builder during the Dawn Age. Winterfell has been expanded and rebuilt many times over the ages. Hot springs provide the castle with warm water during all seasons, and an ancient Godwood lies at its center with a great heart tree. Rumors abound as to the source of Winterfell's heat, and some claim a great dragon lives underneath and provides the heat, but the maesters of the Citadel of course deny this, as well as mushrooms claim that Wormax left a clutch of egg at Fintwell during the Dance of the Dragons. Yeah, so I guess there's not much to it.
Well, this chapter kind of, I don't pay attention to the architecture as much as a lot of other people, but a couple years ago I got this framed painting of Winterfell, and it's apparently not accurate at all as to what Winterfell actually looks like, with the double curtain wall and the moat in between. So I enjoy looking at the painting, but now I always get a little angry that it's not accurate.
Is it like the one from the show with the those roundish, like, flat top
it's
towers?
Actually, it's from the card game. It's by Thomas Jedrzejczyk, who he's done a couple other paintings in the book, but for some reason this one, it just looks like a bunch of buildings on top of each other. But the painting in the book is definitely much more accurate with the double curtain wall and everything.
Yeah, but don't you feel like something that big would not be sustainable in winter?
I don't know how anything's sustainable in winter. I don't get how everyone doesn't die every winter. So
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, there are huge sections of the castle that aren't inhabited at any time, so they're just like I don't know. I mean, when Roose Bolton is occupying it, they only pretty much live in the Great Hall. Like all the other shit is like just left to its own devices.
Right.
But I guess with the Starks, they might have maintained a couple of the buildings, but maybe definitely not all of them.
Well, they talk about the different towers. They talk about the tower where the library is, and that's get burned, and you know they might then they have to live in a separate tower. And if you look at this specific painting, then there's essentially just they are living in all the habitable towers except for the old tower.
That's like one of my questions about this is because I mean they have the Wolf's Wood like right next to them, but like a historic thing to it. It's like a lot of people cannot cut down wood. And that's why they moved over to America, and we're shipping wood back over to England because England didn't have enough wood to actually heat their stoves all the time. So, like, how did like this huge castle sustain itself? Like
Hot springs.
Hot springs, yeah.
Dragons.
Magic. Moving on.
All right.
I think a lot of this kind of doesn't hold up when you get down to that level of scrutiny, but it's only because the next book hasn't been written that we're looking at it this deeply. So, but, yeah.
I also just want to point out that the Ironborn are fucking amazing if they scaled both those walls.
Nobody was guarding them.
But I'm saying
it's like taking your time with like a ropes course.
I'm saying these are like literally,
which is fucking impressive.
And these are literally like 30 feet tall, at least.
I think
they're
doesn't look that hard.
180 feet
taller than that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Maybe, yeah. They would be pretty amazing just to be able to scale that wall.
Yes, Patrick, the Ironborn are amazing.
Yes, they are.
Vikings.
Hey, I haven't mentioned Vikings in the show proper yet.
No, but we've got enough of a Scandinavian history lesson to last us a month already out of you today.
Aww, I'm sorry.
No, I actually do appreciate it when you tell us, because as a dumb American, it's nice to have other cultural references for trade and everything, so I do always appreciate that.
Yeah, that's also just my reference points. That's like America. It's like Americans only get like American history, and maybe some British history, but
well, we don't have much history, so you guys have much more history than we do.
Thank you.
And we selectively forget about half of that history, so.
Especially if you live in Texas.
Yep.
No politics.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
bumming on
Sorry.
Shane, and he's not even here, man.
Sorry, Shane.
Well,
We
Shane
love
doesn't live in
you.
Texas. He lives in a swamp in Louisiana, so that's fine.
Right, we determined that.
Well, like about the hot springs and the sort of heating, like I don't know. much about engineering and shit, but like, is there like any precedent for that sort of stuff in actual history, like heating with hot springs? I don't think they did that in Iceland, like until pretty recently, and they're just taking the power from they're not like pumping the actual water or anything.
I think it's really recent geothermal kind of stuff. Like, I don't know any ancient things that were like, oh, we're right here.
If only they had George R. R. Martin to give him the idea.
Seriously.
Yeah, like, wouldn't like the water be scalding hot? Like, it wouldn't be like you couldn't like have baths in it, like Theon says that he had in the Godwood with the hot springs and shit.
No, I mean, hot springs are different. You know, they're different temperatures depending on, I don't know, geology stuff.
Well, I mean, they have hot springs in Iceland where it's cold as shit, but like the water won't scald you or like boil you.
Is it just like the geysers that are really hot then?
I don't know. The only hot springs I've ever been in, Costa Rica. Not Mexico, but Costa Rica, by the volcano Arenal.
Okay, so apparently, according to Wikipedia, the only buildings in ancient history that has been like heated by geothermal power is like temples and churches, stuff like that. So nothing on the scale of Winterfell, at least.
But where?
We have the Temple of Ephesus in Greece, and you have Genoa Abbey in France, I would guess. Yeah. And some royal monastery in Spain. So yeah, a few different places have been heated by geothermal
it's possible,
power.
Just on this scale it didn't happen, but it's...
No, it hasn't happened like anything else in Westeros.
It's gotta be like a bitch, like if you like break a pipe in the wall where the like the heat is going on, and they don't have like the craft to like fix it or anything. Like they don't really know how to do it anymore. So how have they maintained it? Like
there wasn't a section here about the Great Winterfell plumbers.
It's a me.
Yeah, but they were all killed.
Oh, no. Yeah, they hadn't unionized yet, so they didn't have the bargaining power.
It's a me, Brandon.
Goddamn turtle problems.
That doesn't really make sense. I mean, does it make sense that you could... I mean, you would have to plumbing through the walls. So many pipes.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so many mentions of night soil that I just sort of assume that there's no plumbing in Westeros.
Exactly.
Well, in what is it? The Lannister castle, there is apparently.
Yeah, systems, I think. But was that in the show and not on the...
Well, yeah, sewer systems are different than like indoor plumbing. It's much easier to have a, sewer system than pipes inside a house, right?
I mean, the Romans had all that stuff, though, so it's not crazy to think your medieval fantasy world could.
But they were all lead pipes.
Oh, yeah, that's why the Romans were fucking insane, is because all their water was poisoning them.
Greg.
Is that real? That's one of those things I've always heard that I kind of wonder about the veracity of.
It's probably a contributing factor.
Didn't help.
Yeah, but Brandon the Builder, like, do you think that he was an actual dude who was like a good engineer or some shit like that? Because
Brandon the Builder, he had a giant mustache and ate mushrooms.
Stripping balls too.
Do.
We can tell who's been drinking on this episode.
Actually, maybe if unicorn horns are hollow.
So, what would you do with that?
They'd make a great bowl.
Not to drink out of.
I was actually going to say pipe, but then that means basically the same thing.
Yep.
Maybe Winterfell's walls are full of unicorn horn pipes. And that's why the dragon has stuck around for so long.
A valid theory.
Yes, it's good to end on a very nonsensical theory. All right, so that brings us to the end of Winterfell and the North chapter.